Welcome to today's Spotlight On. For those that just joined, welcome, and please throw your name and where you're from or who you work with and an email in the chat. That'll let us share updates and resources as we move forward. And we're glad that you guys are all here. So today's Spotlight On is on the Regional Resilience Roadmap for Central and Southwest Virginia. Today, we are going to talk a bit about who we are, who Resilient Virginia is, what the regional roadmap is, why it matters, and then we'll take a look at it and have some time at the end for Q&A. And we'll also be able to share these slides, so these links here to download and view the map will be accessible to you all. It's also on our website, on the RVCA page, Resilient Virginia Collaborative Alliance. Resilient Virginia is a statewide nonprofit organization that helps translate resilience from concept to practice by connecting people, sectors, and resources. Resilient Virginia launched the Collaborative Alliance for Central and Southwest Virginia, or RVCA, in 2023 to provide a structure for regional resilience, coordination, learning, and action, rather than relying on one-off meetings or isolated initiatives. It brings together stakeholders across sectors and jurisdictions around shared resilience priorities, helping create stronger alignment and continuity over time. And the roadmap was developed through the RVCA and has been published for the RVCA region. And I will hand it on over. Thank you all for being here.
Hey guys, this is Brenna Wolf, the Resilient Virginia Collaborative Alliance Manager. Nice to meet everybody, and thanks for jumping on the call. The RVCA Regional Roadmap is the first comprehensive resiliency roadmap for Central and Southwest Virginia. This is really a strategic plan designed to support communities across inland Virginia. So we're talking about 11 different planning district commissions across the state. This roadmap was created for long-term resilience and to strengthen social and natural capacity. It provides a structured framework for aligning policy and funding and partnerships to help build a stronger, more adaptable communities over time. Next slide. Yeah, and so why does this matter? We developed this roadmap to support coordinated action across the region. And as we all know, the region is facing challenges and limited representation across the state. So we've been working on this for quite some time. This roadmap is here to serve as a guiding framework for Resilient Virginia resiliency efforts and support strategies that reflect the region's diverse geographic conditions. It's also here to provide a resource for folks and to integrate insights from multiple sectors, as this was very much a cross-sector effort, and to assess regional priorities, challenges, and opportunities. And it's also to provide a framework for cross-sector partnership to help with all of these, including organizational capacity, community function, and infrastructure. Next slide. Yeah, and so this is just a quote from Greg Steele. Most of you guys probably know that Greg Steele is the new Virginia Chief Resiliency Officer. If you guys haven't had a chance to look at the roadmap yet, he did write the foreword within the publication. So next slide. Yeah, and so the RVCA roadmap structure is really broken down into 3 big buckets. And if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet, it's broken down by an overview, strategies for developing resilience, and then a pretty robust appendix. And so within the overview, we've got regional strengths and stressors. We've got what's going on currently in the resiliency space and what efforts are currently underway, and then the regional priorities. And again, a lot of this information was identified from the priority setting meetings that we had throughout the past 3 years. And then the strategies for developing and achieving resilience. This area covers governance, coordination, proactive planning, leveraging collective resources, resiliency hubs, mutual aid, and then innovative financing. And then the appendix has a great deal of information and great data for folks to take a look at. That includes 6 different frameworks, tools and resources, regional strengths and impacts, and then again, what currently is going on in the resiliency effort space. There's also a lot of great climate data and maps that are in the appendix, as well as all the stakeholder input that we garnered from all of the meetings that we had. And this includes the meetings in person and all the meetings that we had virtually across the state. Next slide. Yeah, and so the regional priorities, as you will see, are broken down really into 4 categories when you're looking at the document. The document is a robust 150-page document. So we try to put in some icons to kind of help people navigate and get oriented into the document. It's really broken down into ecosystem services, built environment, economic activity, and then community development. So some of the key overarching takeaways was building resilient, sustainable infrastructure, built resilient economy that supports workforce development and communities, and then a built, informed, connected, and capable communities. And this all ties obviously into healthy lands and waters for resilient communities. Next slide. Yeah, and so the next slide really focuses in on healthy lands and waters, and this section of the document goes into a lot more detail. But the key takeaways within this section was really a focus or need for improved education and access to accurate information. There seems to be, fragmented information or misinformation in various areas of the state. Advancing systems thinking and cross-sector collaboration, strengthening ag and land management practices, expanding funding and capacity investments for resilience. I know this is a big one that came up a lot throughout the meetings that we had across the state. And then the other big one that came up was addressing industry and workforce barriers. You want to go to the next slide? Yeah, and so the next one, again, some of this stuff, you'll see some repeated themes throughout, but the next one was really focused on sustainable infrastructure and strengthening local government capacity for resilience. And so a lot of that conversation, a lot of that information revolves around planning and implementation. Also, stabilizing funding for infrastructure and buildings. Again, conversation about funding and capacity, um, governance frameworks, improving coordination, increasing workforce development again. And then, a thing that was identified within that was the need for private sector engagement, and then shifting messaging to support resiliency solutions, as well as how to upgrade critical infrastructure and community facilities. Next slide. And then this section of the roadmap, if you're looking at it, is really focused on economic activities. And again, this, as you see, will have some reoccurring themes in it. The need for increased access to funding and financial support, how to promote long-term systematic economic planning, how to reduce resources and supply chain vulnerabilities, and then also, again, how to strengthen the workforce. Next slide. Yeah, and then the last one is this community engagement icon. And when you're looking in the roadmap, you'll notice the 3 little people icon that we use for that. And some of the same themes that we've seen throughout: strengthening local leadership and governance capacity, how to engage cross-sector and regional collaboration, increase public awareness engagement. That also includes public education and outreach. And then also how to expand access to critical infrastructure and communication. And another big thing that kept reoccurring and coming up in conversations, and a lot of the information that we did, was aligning policies and goals across these sectors and across these jurisdictions. Because as we all know, resiliency is a transboundary issue. Next slide. Yeah, and so I'm not going to read this word for word for you guys, but the comments that are up on this slide came out of all the meetings that we had and all the input that we had from folks across the state, regional strengths, and then some major stressors. As you can see, we have, as I'm sure a lot of you know, an abundance of natural resources, strong ag sector, strong ecosystems. We have a lot of national forests in the state, those sorts of things. Also, growing the network of colleges and universities. We have a really strong network of that throughout the state. And then this tight-knit rural communities. Folks that live in communities that are smaller tend to be pretty tight-knit. And then also the strengths around strategic transportation connections and all the work and conversations that are happening around transportation. And also diversifying economies with emerging industries. And then some of those stressors, as you guys I'm sure know, are things like limited healthcare access, economic challenges, gaps in education, and then just capacity overall with local governments or certain localities. Next slide. Next slide. Maybe you guys can see the next slide. Let's see.
I went to the next slide. Do you see it?
We're
Yeah, it's up there. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so this is just kind of an abbreviated overview. If you look at the actual roadmap, it goes into way more detail. We didn't want to bombard you guys with 150 pages on within an hour. So, but yeah, state and local resiliency efforts that are already underway and happening across the state. So there's a lot of good work that's already happening. There's a lot of local and regional resiliency initiatives. As some of you guys probably know, there's the Community Flood Preparedness Investment Fund. There's some pretty exciting things happening around resiliency hubs. And then, a real attention or a real focus on how to integrate local planning efforts and then a growing public awareness about how to address some of these issues. The other things, obviously, are the statewide plans and climate strategies, the great work that's happening at the statewide level with the Office of Commonwealth Resiliency, which is Greg Seal's office. And then also this ongoing cross-sector, cross-agency effort that's happening in terms of sharing science and coordinating efforts and tools and programs. Next slide. Yeah, and so I'm going to let Trish take over on this one, but there's 6 cross-cutting strategies throughout the document. We have 6 frameworks within it that are pretty robust, and I'll let Trish take over on that.
Thanks, Brendel. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm Trish. I am the Director of Programs and Communications with Resilient Virginia, and Brendel and I have been working to pull all of the information together into this one document. I'm going to briefly walk through the strategies that we developed and refined for the roadmap. So after working with local and regional stakeholders to identify these key priorities and challenges that Brendel just talked about, we focused on creating strategies that would be flexible, long-lasting, and adaptable to each community's needs. We didn't want to have hyper-focused strategies that wouldn't be able to be used for more than 1 or 2 communities, and that would be wouldn't be able to they couldn't use them a year down the road. We wanted them to be long lasting. Before we get into the 6 frameworks, I do want to make a quick note. We did color code them in the roadmap to make them easier to find. And we're also providing each framework as a separate downloadable PDF. So you don't have to sift through the whole document if you only need the one section. We are currently working on splitting those out and putting them on our website. They should be out there hopefully by the end of this week, maybe next week, but we'll let you know. Okay. So the first strategy focuses on strengthening governance and coordination to help communities work together on resilience. It improves the alignment among partners, clarifies roles, and supports collaboration, especially in rural areas with limited capacity. This framework helps coordinate efforts, align priorities, and move from short-term projects to long-term sustained action. And so in the front part of the roadmap, what you'll see is this really brief summary of these frameworks that we've done. But when you go into the appendix, you will see all of the steps and the actions and everything. And so it's more of broken out for you on actions you can take. So you can learn more about each of these frameworks by going into the appendix. The next strategy focuses on proactive planning to help communities prepare for risks instead of reacting after disasters. It uses risk-informed approaches to identify vulnerabilities early and then plan for future conditions to reduce long-term impacts. This framework supports aligning plans, prioritizing resources, and coordinating across sectors and jurisdictions. The third strategy focuses on leveraging collective resources to strengthen resilience through regional collaboration. By sharing staff, expertise, data, and funding, communities can reduce duplication and increase impact. And that's something that we heard a lot in all of those priority setting workshops. And when we talk to people, is that there's just a lot of duplication going on, and how can we work together to reduce that and increase the impact of what we're doing. So this framework supports coordinated efforts, joint funding, and inclusive participation from smaller or resource-limited communities. The fourth strategy focuses on building resilience hubs, which are community-centered spaces that strengthen resilience, especially in rural areas with limited infrastructure. We base this framework on the Resilience Collaborative's 6 core components, and we have references to them in the roadmap that you can learn more. So the hubs provide reliable services during disruptions, but they also function as everyday gathering spaces that build that trust and connection. So when there is a disruption, people know where to go, and they feel comfortable going there and safe going there. So this framework supports creating or strengthening hubs that integrate emergency preparedness into trusted local spaces in a flexible, community-driven way. It really involves the community in setting these up. So the fifth strategy focuses on building mutual aid networks, which are community-driven systems where people support one another by sharing their resources and skills and information. Unlike formal emergency systems, these are voluntary, trust-based networks that are especially important in rural areas with limited services and strong local ties. This framework helps strengthen and coordinate existing community networks so they can better support both everyday needs and emergency responses over time. And the final strategy focuses on innovative financing, which helps communities expand resources for resilience projects beyond the traditional funding. By blending public, private, and community investments, it increases funding options, speeds up implementation, and supports collaboration across regions. It also helps structure partnerships and funding approaches that are sustainable, equitable, and results-driven. So those are the 6 strategies that we included in the roadmap. But in addition to these frameworks, to these strategies I just covered, we wanted to make sure that the roadmap also included a wide range of supporting resources. So in the appendix, you'll find expanded versions of the frameworks that I talked about earlier, with things like success metrics and action steps, case studies that you can see how other communities have done that. We also included all the stakeholder input from our priority setting workshops. If you want to read that, it's a lot. We included regional climate risk data and maps. We included the key strengths and vulnerabilities. We gave a longer overview of the current resilience efforts across the region, with links to where you can learn more about each of these. And finally, there are several directories with resources, like a list of the state and regional nonprofits that are working in the space, the Virginia agencies, funding and technical assistance opportunities, we tried to include funding opportunities that weren't one-off, so the roadmap wouldn't become dated, but it's funding opportunities that are ongoing through the state agencies. And we included tools for data and information collection, like where can you go to find climate data for creating your resilience plans. So altogether, all of this makes the roadmap a comprehensive resource to support local and regional governments in planning, coordinating, and advancing resilience efforts. And one resource I'd like to specifically call out are the Resilient Virginia Collaborative Alliance, or RVCA, the working groups. So these groups meet monthly to drive local solutions and scale impact across the region. And these groups are going to be working on finding ways to take action with this roadmap. They're open to anyone, and you can learn more on our website. There's a QR code there, but if you can't do the QR code, if you just go to resilientvirginia.org/RVCA, and you can learn more about these and how to register for them to get the Zoom link on your calendar. And with that, I am done with my presentation. We would love to open it up because I know we flew through this, and you may have questions on more details. So if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand or drop it in the chat, and we can open it up for conversation.
Yes, this is Chris Williams from City Newport News. That was great. Thank you. It was very well thought out, and I scanned that QR code, so I'll be checking out all these resources. You mentioned a second ago that there's one place on there with technical assistance. Would this be free for local communities or grant funded or anything like that?
I would say it's probably a little bit of both. I tried to find mostly free. Most of it is through state agencies or nonprofits. And I'm thinking of what we have in there. Do you have any more?
I was going to say, I can tag in Trish that
Yeah, great.
this year the RVCA is working with our RVCA network partners to discuss more, to first of all understand these priorities as well as any that have come up since this, and better work together to collaborate on how we can provide technical assistance across our network to those that need it. So my non-answer answer is that we are still trying to hone in on the best way to approach that and make the resources available and the needs known to the network partners. And, ideally would love to find grant funding that would allow Resilient Virginia and the RVCA network partners to provide free technical assistance, but might also be a mixture of some MOUs to identify some work plans and how that technical assistance could look.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Gary Harris, Center for Sustainable Communities and Hampton Roads. I must have taken a sip of my Diet Coke, which I should not be drinking over here. But did I miss the word equity or equality or justice somewhere in here? Particularly in terms of cross-cutting imperatives and priorities. I I may have missed it.
No, and I may not have said it in the presentation, but all of these, if you look at the roadmap and the frameworks, they actually do include equity and justice. Sorry, my phone started ringing. I'm sorry. Equity, justice, and equitable solutions, really looking at the communities that have are most vulnerable and um, I'm trying to, I've lost my words. I'm sorry. It does focus on equity, um, a lot of it. So if you look at, especially, well, I guess if you look at the frameworks in the back, each of them in the action steps focus on that.
Okay, I'll take
Yeah.
a look. Thanks.
Yeah, take a look and let us know if like there's anything, any way that we could adapt it to bring that in more.
Also, quickly here, we're building a resilience hub at a church in Hampton Roads. And how can we extract what you have or plug in some of the learnings that the early learnings and heartaches that we're going through, in order to inform this process as well?
Oh, we would love to hear from you. Can we like talk to you and get your stories and share those out?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to set up some time to talk with you then.
Okay.
I know you've spoken, I think, at a conference or Resiliency Academy in the past, and so I
Yeah.
have your information. So
Okay. All
that'd be
right.
great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Uh-huh.
Trish, we have a question in the chat here from Josh Foster. He says, in terms of mutual aid coordination or just general collaboration, what recommendations does the roadmap advocate with the state and also with other states in the region as regional collaboration beyond just Central and Southwest Virginia? Hurricane Helene was an example of an event that impacted an entire region and needed a lot of outside help for response. So, how is Virginia preparing for region-wide disasters that may overwhelm existing response in one part of the state that crosses jurisdictional boundaries?
That's a great question, and maybe we should talk to Greg about that. Uh,
Definitely, yeah, definitely something we've thought a lot about,
yeah,
Josh, and how do we pivot to collaborating with other nonprofits, organizations, governments that are in the same region despite jurisdictional boundaries. And a lot of that comes to networking and identifying folks that we can collaborate with. And then going from there to how do we work together to collaborate and address these issues and build capacity for response. Thank you, Brendel. She just put in the chat there the Office of Resilience link for folks that might not have it. Esther Wensink asked, is there somebody from Resilient Virginia who's working at or would like to work to get manufacturing companies involved? And I think, speaking for the team, the answer would be we would definitely love to learn more what that would look like, and for sure to get manufacturing companies involved where there is so much resilience that ties into that whole chain of manufacturing, transportation, goods, etc. And really looking at a circular economy and how that works with resilience in manufacturing.
Hey, could you all, this is Rob Alexander at JMU. I think it's important for all of us to hear, what do you all see Resilient Virginia as an organization? What's your role now that the roadmap is out there? And help us understand the limits of your capacity, because we could also be allies in advocating and supporting growing capacity for you because you do such a great job with convening and data collection.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got a next step plan for 2026 in terms of taking this roadmap from being a roadmap written concept to action by convening the RVCA network partners and then also conducting outreach to the regions of the RVCA, of the collaborative there, understanding their needs, priorities, as it aligns with the roadmap and what kind of capacity they're at so that we can begin to tackle implementing some of these priorities. that have been identified through community engagement, very community-centric focus, and taking this year to conduct that outreach and really hone in on the specifics of the priorities identified in each of those local government regions. Does that answer it somewhat? I think some of those answers are also going to come from our meetings with our network partners, and the outreach that we've started conducting with the localities and municipalities to better understand what direction each wants to take and what they need to get there.
Hey, so Annette put in something in the chat about our interest in setting up clean energy working groups and emergency preparedness working groups. So yes, a note about the working groups that we have currently going on. The three that we have are the ones that we had the most interest in based on an initial survey, but they're not the only ones that we would like to do. We are looking for working group leaders to lead some others, and I think we found a couple people to lead a clean energy working group that will hopefully start pretty soon. We would love to start other working groups that are focusing on the different aspects of resilience around this region. If you have any interest in helping out, or if you have a topic that you think would be particularly relevant for us to start a working group on, please let us know. And we can get those set up and try to get them up and running.
And just to add to that, too, not just issues or risks that are being dealt with now, but any topical solutions. If there's things that have been working and might be transferable or worth collaborating across the collaborative region with, having work groups that focus on some of those maybe less explored and more available opportunities and solutions that can address these issues.
Hi, this is Eric Curran. I'm in the private sector, so I'm not as familiar with your work and with the roadmap as probably some of the folks on this call. So this might be a stupid question, but I'm just curious if the roadmap, if your approach to resilience, is it mostly about emergency management preparation, like if there's a big storm or a blackout or something? Or is it also about preparing communities for sort of less acute emergencies, such as, for example, let's say the United States gets involved in an oil war that closes the Straits of Hormuz and the price of gas goes up to $5 a gallon and impacts the economy. Is your roadmap also involved in sort of preparing communities for things like that?
So, and I'll let Trish or Brendel speak to this current iteration of the roadmap specifically, but definitely for Resilient Virginia as a whole, looking at the systems level of resilience, we follow the latter, not just responding to emergencies, but preparing communities for them, and also working to engage them on how to adapt their current status, their current functioning so that they are more resilient when something does happen.
I'd like to add to that too. Yes, it is the systems level look, right, at resilience. It's not just emergencies. But I also like to look at it as becoming resilient so you can just continue to live there and function. I always kind of like to use the example of, you can make your community completely resilient to flood. It's never going to flood there. You've built walls up. But if you don't have jobs, nobody's going to move there and live there. If you don't have schools, if there's no social structure, if people don't feel safe there, if there's no community trust, so it's a we have to look at it from all the different angles. And I feel like building up those mutual aid networks that is a really good way to um, address uh, like those concerns of like, oh my goodness, gas is now $5 a gallon. We've already built in these mutual aid networks where we can rely on each other for help or assistance. Um, you know, getting people places, knowing where people need to go, where people are. If there is an emergency, we know where to check on people, different things like that. And I know that's just one little example, but it's kind of how we think of it. And I don't know if that helped. I really hope that helped. One thing to add real quick is we are also, and we didn't mention this at the beginning, that after we get these frameworks and these separate pieces kind of put on our website as separate PDFs for people to download, we are going to work on a dashboard for people to make it more accessible and working on that so people can go in and look at it and say, well, okay, these are my challenges. This is what I need, and then it will help guide you or direct you to the framework that you might need to do or the partnerships that you could form, things like that. There's a lot of different ways that we could take that, and we're looking into that right now.
Trish, if I may, I'd like to address Esther Wensick's question about companies.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I just want to let her know that I spend my days on the computer searching for companies that show some environmental conscientiousness and reach out to them. And if there's anything she can do to help or has suggestions, please consider me. I'm the marketing coordinator for Resilient Virginia. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is Esther. I would love to connect. So if you just want to reach out to me, my email, I put my email in the chat in the earlier, like in the top.
Okay, I'll try and get mine in here for you.
Okay.
And so I'll pull out her email address and get that for you if you don't see it before we hop off. So.
This is Rob Alexander from JMU again. And first, I'll make a big plug. If you're able to, I think it's important that we become members of Resilient Virginia. They're not paying me to say this stuff. I actually believe it, so that we can both have access to all of this great data, but also support their efforts. But the other thing is, I put in the chat that as someone who works at a public institution of higher education in Virginia that's also in this particular region, I'm definitely going to work with RV to be able to pull together how can we lightly coordinate all of the universities that are out there. But I think what's really important is that for all of you that are in the work, in the PDCs, in the communities, in the private sector, what do you expect from the higher ed partners? And I think that could be really helpful. Convey that maybe to RV, but help us figure out how we can best use our resource and knowledge and data and research to be able to then support these efforts going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. That is something that I think we pointed that out in the roadmap too, of like kind of letting that be known. Go ahead, Jess. I'm sorry. I see that you
Oh, you're
unmuted.
okay. No, it's just scrolling back up to where we are. Brendel's really engaging in the chat, so thank you for answering and throwing things in there, Brendel. Kenny, I asked, does there currently exist some type of map or central database of resilience hubs that currently exist or are being developed across Virginia? I think the framework for resilience hubs in the roadmap is very good, but wonder if it could be built on even further with something like lessons learned from established hubs across the state. And he goes on to say he's not sure if it's something in our wheelhouse or the Office of Resilience, but could see it having a big impact as we see more hubs being developed. And Trish and Brendel, I'm not sure if you have. I have not seen a central database, but we are working to pull together all of the resilience efforts across the state, hubs included, to identify what's going on where and do exactly that, understand and connect a network so that folks can share lessons and work together.
Right. And I'll say that we worked with Baja, who created a resilience hub, the idea of a resilience hub, and their idea is not just a place to go when there's a disaster, but it's like a resilience hub that builds up that trust, and it's a community um, resilience hub, and just everyday occurrences, and just you can go and you find a community there, and it can be a place to go and find Wi-Fi to get some work done, whatever. But we're working with her, and she is working on resilience hubs all over the world, but she's helping us identify some resilience hubs, and also they've got a lot of those stories and the best practices, lessons learned that we're going to be able to share through a partnership with them.
Chris McDaniel shared that my husband and I own Shelf Life Books in Richmond. We will be hosting Will Hackman for an author talk on 5/14. Will's book, Radically Reframing Climate Change, has released this week, and he's a strong advocate for resiliency. So there's some connections there. I saw Annette responded to him. I love seeing the connections, folks. So keep those connections going and collaborating by all means. And if we can help in connecting folks from this spotlight on to each other, we're more than happy to do so. Any collaboration with Resilient North Carolina, Brendel answered that we're just Virginia at this time, but definitely worth seeing a potential in collaborating, especially where we are, I guess, sister states, right? We share lines, and climate and hazards do not care about the lines and jurisdictions. So definitely a good point to make there. Addressing next action steps in that, we are working this year to conduct outreach on moving these identified priorities in the roadmap to action and implementing some of the solutions. So we've started the RVCA Network Partners working sessions and begun outreach to the municipalities and PDCs of the collaborative region to identify next steps that are feasible for them and how we can work within our network to identify the assistance and capacity needed.
Let me throw in there really quick. On April 14th, we're hosting a Zoom session for regional and local government partners on doing a roadmap briefing on here's what we've come up, and so they can get a close look at the frameworks and the strategies. So then we're going to start a survey, a quarterly survey, identifying their own personal, locality or regional needs, and do an assessment, and then working with the network partners working group to identify how can we help those communities address their specific needs. If it's technical assistance, if it's funding, do we know funding opportunities? There's a lot of subject matter experts and a lot of people working in this field, and we all know different things. And so bringing together this group that we can all brainstorm together to help these localities and provide the resources that they need. So that is one of the main next steps that we're working on, in addition to the dashboard that I just spoke about. If you'd like to attend that April 14th, if you're a locality or regional government, let me know. I'll put my email address in the chat, but I send it to the head of each PDC in our region, the 11 PDCs in the RVCA region. But let me know, and I will gladly send you the calendar invite.
Thanks, Trish. Brendel shared in the chat as well that universities can help serve as a neutral ground for convening and moving this cross-sector work forward, as well as assist with community engagement, equity, and possible projects, as well as any funding support, which would be huge from higher education institutions to continue the work. And that we're also working on letting folks know about this work, and the roadmap is out there for use. If you know of any group or organization that would like us to present this information, we would love to connect with them.
Yeah, and I think I'll just throw out there for those that don't know, we are a very small team, so any support that we can get is greatly appreciated, and that's how we love connecting with folks as well. I also want to just throw out there a huge thank you to everybody that has contributed to this roadmap. This has been a huge collective team effort, and it wasn't just us like, gathering information and dictating what should be in it and what should not be in it. We really reached out to a lot of different stakeholders. We really were intentional about gathering all the feedback from folks, and then also just, connecting with different people in different sectors and saying, we know you're an expert in this or you have experience in this. Like, can you please give us some feedback or insights into this? So it really was a regional effort with a lot of different folks across the state, a lot of different practitioners, community members, nonprofits, universities, private sector folks, localities. It's the gamut of folks. And we also, had the opportunity to meet those folks across the state, which was really uh, a welcomed opportunity. So.
Um, okay, let's see. Annette mentioned to consider inviting reps from state reps with the ultimate goal of furthering legislation. Esther, thank you for the plug. There's also a training program that started 2 weeks ago, and it happens to be the Resilient Virginia Resilience Foundation certificate program, and she even shared the link in there. You're hired, Esther. And Alice thanking for the work.
Yay!
Oh, go ahead, Esther.
I was just saying, yay! Thank you for highlighting.
um, Alice saying thank you for the hard work and sharing the knowledge. It's awesome to see this come to life. And thank you, Alice. You were definitely part of that team, as have many others on this call been. Um, and again, Esther, thanks for the overview. And again, folks, just to reinforce what Trish and Brundle said, please, if there's other groups or areas that could benefit from this roadmap, if there are folks, looking for help, even if it's a community leader and they're not sure where to start, that's where we're happy to jump in and, help folks figure out climbing those first rungs on the ladder there and getting word out to their local leaders and government, etc. And yes, Brenda, if folks are looking to engage with the collaborative, reach out. If you're looking to run a working group or participate in one or on the steering committee, please, we are not done yet. We've got a lot more to accomplish and a lot of vision and goals we'd like to achieve. And we can't do it alone. So collaboration is the name of our game.
I'm going to plug one more thing. Not RVCA related, but Resilient Virginia related. We are having the next Resiliency Academy session on April 16th. And it is related, just doesn't come from the RVCA.
Thanks everybody for hopping on the call and happy spring.
Thanks,
Yes.
everyone.
Yes, I will send out the video and the slides next week. Have a great day.